welcome back to Joe's Rod Shop podcast. It's a new year, new possibilities. It's going to be a good one. I don't like to think of all the negative stuff and everything that's going on. I want to be positive and I want to look forward. And the guest I've got on the show is exactly the same. Before we get into it, I just want to remind you guys, click that subscribe button or like. We've got a bunch of great shows lined up. But we want to know from you, is there anyone you want to get on the show? Is there anyone specifically you think we should be talking to? So yeah, click that subscribe, and let's get this thing going. All right, now something I just needed to put out there. On the 23rd of January, we are starting the Rod Shop Season 4 on Ignition, Channel 189. Yeah, it's my new attempt for creating TV shows. We expanded from last year. We've also included a whole bunch of cool stuff like the RF Army, Win My Ride, and everything. So go check it out because you will be amazed to see actually how the industry have grown in a year. Now, to everyone that's not on DSTV, don't worry, we've got you covered. When the episodes come off of Ignition, they will be going onto our YouTube channel. So don't worry, you will be able to see everything there as well. All right, now on to today's show. Before we start on today's episode, I need to say huge thank you for Cooper Tires for making this happen. Jenny, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Now, in 2013, Cooper Tires launched in South Africa, and I was at the launch event, and Mr. Kingsley Holgate was a guest speaker. Now, after the event, I was actually staying at the same hotel that he was, and we were all actually sitting around the table. Yes, I got to drink Captain Morgan with Mr. Captain Morgan. That was one of the best moments ever. And I was completely taken back by this man and his message and his positivity. And I wanted to get that onto the show. And Jenny and Cooper Tires made this happen for us. To me, there was no better person to start this year off better than Mr. Kingsley Holgate. Enjoy the show. Welcome, Mr. Kingsley Holgate, to the show. It's really an honor to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Joe. Likewise, and interesting times. The start of 2021, and I love chatting to you. Let's sort of pretend we're sitting around a campfire out there in the bush in Africa. Exactly. The fire, an old baobab tree, the sounds of the wild.
I met you the first time. It was in 2013 when Cooper Tire launched in South Africa. I was at the launch, the one at Cradle, I think it was Cradle Humankind where we had it. And
I remember that well. There were lots of lovely discussions and talk of adventures. And of course, what a great brand. We've used them for years. Cooper Tires for us are they allow us to do what we do. Yeah, great brand, Cooper.
Absolutely. No, it was brilliant. It's one of my favorite stories is the fact that I got to sit with you drinking Captain Morgan.
Oh my gosh, the old enamel mug.
Exactly. But sir, yeah. I want let's get going because I know you're traveling soon. Where I wanted to find out, where did this all start for you? I mean, you were one of the most traveled people in the world. Where did this all actually start?
It's Joe. It's quite a common question. Laziness, this love for Africa, all begin. So going back to when I was a child, I was the youngest of three brothers. My dad and mum were both missionary teachers and traveled a lot into Africa, and we'll be bundled into the back of an old 1946 Chev, three boys in the back. I remember, in those days, of course, it was still Northern Rhodesia. I remember the Belgium Congo. I remember camping in old bell tents on the side of rivers, cooking on one of those old primer stoves, you'll remember, and waiting for the rivers to go down as goats and pumpkins flowed past. All those early memories of Africa and the respect and passion for this beautiful continent we're privileged to live in. But more than that, I guess, maybe it was because I was the youngest, or maybe had these romantic notions in my head. But I would often sit on my dad's lap and he would recount the stories of the early explorers, great men like Livingstone, Stanley, Burton, Speke. Especially Livingstone was one of his favorites. And we'd sit and share the old books and the maps, and he'd talk about these adventures. And I suppose, Joe, those early seeds of exploration and discovery were sown as a young man.
And do you feel like you still find something new? You still, as you explore, is there still moments that take your breath away?
Absolutely. And, a common question that's sort of asked of us as a team of adventurers, a family, a lifestyle that we've so bought into, why do we do it? And the answer is very simplistic. It's because of an overriding passion for Mama Africa. And I remember a National Geographic cameraman once asking us, so who are you? Like, who are you guys? And our answer was that we're just a bunch of ordinary adventurers with an extraordinary passion for Mama Africa. And that's what drives us, a constant passion and a constant sense of curiosity. I think curiosity is one of the most important features or aspects or characteristics of being an adventurer. A lot of stuff you can learn, but if you're not naturally curious, if you're not fascinated by what could be around the next bend in the river, what's happening over those mountains, what are the tribal cultures of the area you're crossing through? That's to me, it's all about that passion and curiosity. When the curiosity goes, it's time to hang up one's boots.
But now,
enough lifetimes for that.
Yeah, but and you're on your way again now. I think you in the message you said you're off to Tanzania. I mean, because you work with the malaria and those projects and stuff as well.
Yeah, all our expeditions are attached to humanitarian causes. This started a long time ago, and there too, I guess it's an interesting question. Why did we start humanitarian work as part of our adventures? It wasn't because we woke up and said, oh, let's be NGOs or let's register something. Where can we find a good? None of it happened like that. It happened because of experiences. When you've had malaria over 50 times yourself, when you've got to a village and there's a woman screaming, not knowing what to do, a mother, her child is dying 100 kilometers or so by dugout canoe to the nearest village, and you realize that you need to help. So the work we do, which is a lot of malaria work, a lot of work with Goodbye Malaria, an organization founded by Nando's, Robbie Brosen, the founder of Nando's, and I got together many years ago in the bush, and we said we needed to do something about malaria. So yes, a big spraying program in southern Mozambique, which is really important because without that, we'd be having much more malaria here in Zululand and, of course, in that Kruger National Park area and in Eswatini. So important work. But in those early days, it was all about personal experiences that made us realize that we better use these adventures to improve and save the lives of others, to improve the quality of lives of others. So we started with the distribution of mosquito nets, life-saving nets to pregnant mothers and to mums with tiny kids. They are the most vulnerable. And so that work just gathered impetus over the years. And now with the support of Land Rover, for example, and others, we've been able to keep this good work going. So yes, malaria prevention is key because we've suffered so much and we've seen so much suffering. We've had someone die in one of the Land Rovers. So when you've had these experiences, believe me, it encourages you good. Joe, is something that we take. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say, talking about others, I remember years ago you did the TV ad for Captain Morgan, which did something like that, a brand like that, taking it and throwing on TV. Did that make a big change with getting your name out there and what you guys do and all that type of stuff? Did that really help using you in a situation where it was something that wasn't directly. I mean, it wasn't like a Cooper Tires or something like that. It was a completely separate brand that took you to show off the promotion, the what you do, and the lifestyle and stuff. That actually helped.
It was a very interesting and it by support for a particular adventure. The adventure was from the mouth of the Zambezi to the mouth of the Congo. Um, Phenomenal journey. Another sponsor backed out at the last minute, and the journalist that was traveling with us said, "Why don't you try Captain Morgan? They're an adventure brand." We got hold of them. I remember it was the old days of faxes, I think, and that was a Friday. And by Monday, Captain Morgan returned with a wonderful answer, and they said, you guys do what we believe in, and that's adventure. It's not about the grog. It's not about seen to be pouring a bottle down your throat and that sort of thing. In fact, we never used the word rum ever on our Land Rovers or any of the branding. It was purely Captain Morgan adventure. And so they bought into the Captain Morgan, the ethos. Captain Morgan bought into the ethos of adventure. And was it good for us? Absolutely. It promoted our adventures, but not that we feel as personalities that we need promotion. What it did do, it helped us with our adventures to do good. I remember one occasion they allowed us to purchase, it wasn't a lot of money, but they allowed us to purchase an old Arab sailing dhow, Swahili dhow, which we bought from a place called Mafia Island up on the coast of Tanzania. 35-ton dhow. Her name was Amina, the Spirit of Adventure. And that was exactly the sort of thing that Captain Morgan liked, the sort of seafaring adventure. And they didn't mind what we used it for. And we're absolutely chuffed that it was for adventure, much like Land Rover and our other supporters do. So all about using adventure to improve the lives of others. And we sailed that dhow all the way to the Somali border and back. It was used to distribute tens of thousands of mosquito nets and do a huge amount of good work. In fact, it's a delightful chapter in our latest book called Africa, A Love Affair with the Continent. So yes, all the support we've got over the years has allowed us to do these actually very challenging journeys linked to good stuff.
Now, with all these adventures, I mean, I love sitting with you and the stories and stuff. Yeah, what is one of your favorite adventures that you've actually gone on, or the most memorable, if you want to put it that way? I know this is probably a question you get a lot, but I mean that's the one that everyone's going to yell at me if I didn't ask.
Yeah, Joe, you're so right. There's always a start to everything, isn't there? And so yes, recapping, learned about adventures from an early age, sitting on my father's knee, as it were. And then just as a youngster, kept on traveling all over the place, many adventures. And of course, then it became difficult as a South African because we were restricted on travel because of our poor politics. And of course, when that changed, a chance to really get back into Africa in a big way. In 92, 93, when that wind of change was blowing across South Africa and Africa for us South Africans, the joy, Joe, of being able to take 2 inflatable boats and travel all the way from Cape Point out at sea, up the coast and along all the major rivers and lakes of Africa to finally get to the mouth of the Nile near Alexandria in 1993, I think it was. And wow, it was even advertised as we were traveling. South Africa open to Ethiopia again. People would mob us in the street. They would come and grab us and hug us. And we were the sort of unofficial diplomatic corps of South African ambassadors making our way with a new flag across Africa. It was just like full of hope. And it was a joyous time, and it was bloody tough, let me tell you. The rivers and lakes, pulling the boats between each river, back into the river, back into the lake, back into the swamp. I mean, a journey that, as I said, took us from Cape Town up the coast, the Okavango, the Zambezi, Lake Malomba, the Shira River, and into Lake Rukwa, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Edward, Lake George, Lake Albert, Lake Kivu. Of course, Lake Turkana, the world's largest desert lake, down the Nile. Huge adventure. So what did that do to us, Joe? And you said, what Why was it memorable? It made us feel as if we were true citizens of Mama Africa, accepted and allowed to travel and allowed to make a difference. And so that has been some that have been more adventurous, I guess. Now, there's been so many other adventures, I think more than city adventures, many of them world first, even in this day and age. But that crossing from Cape Town to Cairo was just fantastic in that time of our history, in open boats. Can you imagine? In sleep, where you end up, all the challenges of the border crossings and what have you. I mean, it's
reminds you of Apocalypse
we wrote. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. I mean, even those old days, we wrote a book. I mean, it was so simplistic. The simply Cape to Cairo in open boats. And when I look back at that, yes, that would be the most memorable because it made us citizens of Mama Africa. South Africa was accepted into the greater continent, and it led to everything that we do today, Joe. I mean, we got back from that journey. We took up residence in Kenya for 4 years, living with the Maasai down on the borders of the Serengeti, and it really did change our lives. That early journey. Political change across Africa that allowed us to travel.
I wanted to ask, normally, when we watch these movies and this type of stuff, Africa's always shown as such a dark and rough place and unsafe and everything. Does it get to you when you see something and you see that's the only portrayal that international people get towards Africa?
Yes, indeed. But by the same token, I should tell you, Joe, and you know this, that I'm the eternal optimist. Mm-hmm. So I'm always going to give you positive news. And the reason for that is expeditions thrive on positivity. Mm. Yes, you need that curiosity I talked about. But if you're not positive, if you don't buy into the goal, if you don't buy into the clear objective, you need to get to Somalia or you need to do this or that, then you're sunk right from the beginning. It's a non-starter. So expeditions run on optimism. Optimism is the fuel of expeditions, and that's our feeling. That sums up our feeling for Africa. We believe it's a continent of hope. We believe it's absolutely magical. I've spent so much time, for example, walking with the migration of the largest number of hoofed animals in the world, the wildebeest migration, to stare into the soft brown eyes of a silverback mountain gorilla in the Virungas, to sail the lakes and rivers, to stand on top of Kilimanjaro, the highest freestanding mountain in the world, and look out across Africa. Elephants, my favorite. Baobabs, my favorite trees. All this kaleidoscope of color, culture, music, sound, everything. When you leave it, you're going to leave a hole in your soul, and you're going to feel empty, because whatever the politics, whatever the challenges, and I know it's not easy for everybody. I know that some people have to move to what they think is a better life and a safer life for themselves, and we must honor and respect that. But for people like ourselves, and I suspect it's the same for you, the passion for Africa, the love for this continent, but its uniqueness, it really is the last frontier of great adventures. And where would you rather Africa for me?
That's true. Talking about struggling times. I mean, so 2020 obviously had effect on everyone. How did 2020 affect everything on your side? I mean, traveling around and seeing this new threat that's now hit the world. How did it affect you guys?
Emotionally, it's tough. We had planned a big cross Africa, 20 countries across Africa in 2020. This play on the word 20. So, plant 20,000 trees in Gorongosa, 20,000 kilometers, 20 countries. It was a play on the word 2020. And I mean, we had big maps up on the wall here in Africa House. And we got into the detail. We even had the fees for all the visas and everything. And then, of course, that was shot dead in the water. And, we had to regroup and replan. Fortunately, 2020 started with a bang for us anyway, because we love to start each year with a bit of a challenge. So 2020 started with immediately after New Year, much this time last year, when you've overeaten and had too much festivities and celebrations, the need to quickly get on the road again. And we started with a simple journey in 2020, Joe. It was called Riding High on Sky. And we did 125 mountain passes from Klein in the top of to highest pass in Southern Africa, all the way to the Richterspot. 125 passes in 30 days. We lived, camped, pushed, drove. Mike Nixon, one of our expedition members, did it on a mountain bike. So yeah, we got off to 2020 with such activity. Wow. And I remember then, of course, February of last year, just thinking back on the year, enormously grateful and hugely privileged to have ended up in Nedi and Tibesti and the Sahara, East Africa and everything. And then, of course, COVID broke. We rushed home, got one of the last flights. The fear about you've been in this airport and that airport and unsafe. Got home. My staff immediately said, go and wash your clothes. Where have you been? It's like bad times. So, yeah. So, and then, of course, the lockdown, the start of COVID. So as a group of adventurers, Joe, just very quickly, we immediately had to about it. I mean, to sit and complain would really be in the wrong way. And what would you have told your grandchildren in the future when they ask you, what did you do during COVID? And you said, no, I just hid somewhere.
That's true.
Be the right, that wouldn't be the right way. So we immediately, a movement started by Joe Peterson, the rugby player, Carl Abbott, the fast bowler, a lovely bunch of guys, Grant Foles, Chris Small, a helicopter pilot, Grant Foles from Project Rhino, a group of us. And we started a movement called Feeding the Wildlife Community. And every week, all the way through COVID, we took off in our Land Rovers tents, a lorry that we use for rhino conservation, a lorry that's from school to school, kids about and conservation, but a stage on the back and a sound system. It's driven by a colorful character, Richard Mabanga Mahlembe, delightful Zulu chap. And we converted those logistics and that infrastructure to distributing nutritional food packs to tens of thousands of people living alongside wildlife areas and game reserves, feeding the wildlife community over a tough time. As you know, tourism, especially international tourism, came to a horrible halt. And a lot of destitute people overnight, money from the cities not coming through, job losses. So what could we do? Feeding the wildlife population became our rallying cry, backed with a number of wonderful people, the Dumore Foundation with nutritional food storage pack, others and we just went day after day, feeding people in deep remote areas, giving them a chance of extra nutrition and supplement during these tough times. And we're still doing it. That's so 2020 was tough. And then, of course, we launched an edition, which we just backed from, Joe, which, if you like, I was telling you about.
I never, it's actually sad that I've never had the thought of how's everybody else outside of main populated areas actually surviving in something like this.
Well, in the deep rural areas of our magnificent country, people really carry on with their lives sort of fairly as normal. Fortunately, the pandemic hasn't marched into those areas as badly, and in some areas, hardly at all. So that does help, but it's the jobs and the flow of income that's tragedy. And we get to some households that are absolutely destitute. They might have been registered for grants, etc., and their little flow of casual jobs linked to tourism it's been tragic. And doing that feeding the wildlife community work that we did grew into an expedition that we've just come back from. And I think you'll like this one because it's about positivity for South Africa at this really difficult time where, as you know, there is a big cloud of doom and gloom that sits above us. And it starts to get into one's soul and you start to feel dumbed down by it. So having started this work with the communities alongside game reserves, we then cooked up a great idea called Mzansi Edge, a journey to track the entire outline of South Africa. We took off in early September and we did it. It was 80 days, 16,000. Wow. Have we got a beautiful country, and we need to be reminded of it.
That's true.
You know, we filled the Zulu calabash, which is what we do traditionally at Cozy Bay, up in the coast of Isimangaliso, up in northern Zululand. Started on foot, walking up to where the Mozambique fence line touches the Indian Ocean. Then following that fence, the McMahon, the Temple Reserve, the hold of Great Tusker gene pool of elephants, in Domo, Usutu Gorge, where the three countries meet, putting up a little cairn of stones for conservation in Isibewan, tracking the Lubombo Range over to Pongola Nature Reserve, the oldest proclaimed nature reserve in Africa, second only to Yellowstone Park in America. Go, go, go. One guy on a bicycle, mountain bike, the rest of us in our Land Rovers. Following the outline of Eswatini, photographing every closed border post. Those mountain ranges, the Makonjwa, now a World Heritage Site, proved to be the oldest mountain range, the oldest rocks in the world. Songomvelo, those wildlife areas. Jeppes Reef, following the old Jocko, the bushveld wagon trails. Getting to the west, the three countries meet again below Kamadi Port, putting up another Sviban of stones. Tracking the edge, the stolen cars, the broken fence lines, the military, all the challenges. Kamadi Port, 491 kilometers of the Kruger Park fence line, following that fence line in a 4x4 wilderness trail. It's just phenomenal. Getting to Crook's Corner, another Isibeban of stones where the three countries meet: Zimbabwe, South Africa, and Mozambique. And then, of course, the Zim fence line, all the nonsense around Bite Bridge, all the storylines, all the carryings on. And then, of course, another Isibeban of stone, Mapungu Place, Golden Rhino, that led us into 1,964 kilometers of following the Botswana fence line up the Orange. There was the Malapa, of course, not to mention the Nosop, and finally Union's End. And then you track for 500 kilometers, a single fence line, dead straight, 20 degrees longitude, all the way from Union's End in the north of Kalahari to reach the Orange River. That then leads you into the Orange, the heat, the difficult conditions I see today. I just got sent a picture. It's flooding, vehicles being swept away down there in the Richtersveld. That brings you to Centerlinks-Clifton. I'm going to speed up the journey, Joe. And of course, that gets you, of course, to the Atlantic. And then 52 lighthouses later, tagging every lighthouse, collecting water into the calabash from river mouths and important lakes and estuaries, all the way up our beautiful coastline. My goodness me, what a country. I mean, even in getting to Durban Harbour, the old Second World War gun emplacements up on the bluff, and taking that old sewage tunnel under the harbour to get to the other side, sticking to the edge wherever we can, walking on the beaches, the forest, and finally getting back to Cozy Bay, at Isimangaliso, which translated into English, as you know, means a miracle of nature. The turtles, a beautiful place, and emptying the calabash. Part of the journey, we're able to do over 250,000 of nutritional food packs to people living alongside wildlife areas. So we've just come back from need to track the outline of South Africa. And of course, if you're going to track the outline of South Africa, you have to include circumnavigating the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. That in itself is 1,000 kilometers if you stretch it out. We average less than 100 kilometers a day. So yeah, tough work on man and machine. We took the new Defenders, of course, put them through their paces.
How are they doing with that, by the way? The Defender, did they actually go up well with this?
Well, how interesting is a mountain pass called the Road to Hell, not to be confused with D-Hell. It's a very rough track that takes you near Fjordsdrift, and it takes you down into the Orange. I wouldn't advise you to do it. It wrecks vehicles. It's a graveyard for vehicles. A lot of people don't get out of there. Some leave their vehicles for months on it. But what was interesting, and I know this is all this new technology and everything, but what was damned interesting was that the new Defenders pulled the old ones out of there all the way to the top. And, you know, the advanced technology, low ratio rock crawling, you can hear them click, 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 click as they take the rocks, and out they go. Very comfortable. You can do these amazing journeys in comfort. But as part of the vehicle team, of course, we have our old Landies, the old Defenders, all fitted with with Cooper tires, we talked about that brand earlier, such a great brand of tire for our adventure work, front runner equipment. Yeah, all the people that support us and make these adventures happen. And as I said, most importantly, that they are adventures to improve and save the lives and help the lives of others. You did ask about some of the humanitarian work. We talked about malaria, Joe, but I'll just add something that's really close to our hearts. Sure. And that's a little project called Right to Sight. It's called Mashozi's Right to Sight, named after Mashozi. That was her Zulu. And that's something that you would take for granted, and all of us would take for granted. As your eyes get weaker, you'd go and buy a pair of readers at a chemist shop or pharmacy. It costs you about $100. Well, many years ago, we came across someone who had sight with them with a pair of readers, and that led to what has now become Right to Sight. To date, we've done about 256,000 pairs of reading glasses.
What?
And we've got the charts. We do the tests, average 5 to 7 minutes per person. And the difference it makes out there in those deep rural areas. There's a Maasai lady who does bead, for example. She can no longer see the colors. She can no longer thread her needle. And in an instant, so to speak, she threads a blue and a green and a red, and she looks up and a smile on her face. And you've given her quality of life back just in a few minutes. That's great. So that's another aspect that we really enjoy of the work that we do.
So how old are you now? If I may ask.
Next birthday, 75.
75, and you are still going, and you are
it
still.
It appears so, yes, Joe.
That part is phenomenal. I mean, we're sitting here, and where most 75s are thinking that they want to have lunch by 4 or dinner by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You sitting here organizing another expedition to go travel. That is phenomenal.
Coffee and. Yeah, Jane, it's just ordinary coffee in here.
Now, do you think of time to ever slow down, or do you get like an itch after you're home, like for a few weeks or a month or two, and it's like, okay, no, I need to get out of here again. I need to go do something.
I think that the rest of the team and Sheila, my partner, will tell you that I think I'm the worst. Even whilst we're on a particular adventure, we're cooking up the next one. And when you've got that enthusiasm and you have that, as I mentioned earlier, that sense of curiosity, that's the fuel in your engine. That's what keeps you going, the excitement. And you never know when you could lose it. Africa is full of challenges. There are some dangers. Fairly recently, we did a journey from the most easterly point of South Africa to Somalia, the most easterly point on the Horn of Africa. 20 guys with AKs, 2 machine guns, challenges, mouth of the Zambezi to the mouth of the Congo. We did a journey, Land Rover journey from Cape Town to Kathmandu. That meant those big, vast deserts of Iran, following the border with Afghanistan, Baluchistan, up to the Chinese border, Pakistan, across India. So you're challenging, but always, you realize that you are just such a small speck on this earth.
Yeah.
Your endeavors are so small. And when you stand, for example, I remember crossing Pakistan, and you stand at the foot of those great mountain ranges, like the Karakoram, the Hindu Kush and the Himalayas, where they all collide, and you look up at this throne room of mountains, and you realize that your time here is just a speck. And if you can use what you've got, if you can use your allocated pebbles of life to do as much and have as much fun and adventure as possible, that's I think that's key to how we think anyway. I'm sure it's not, but that's what drives us. It's this passion and curiosity and love for market.
I must ask you, has there been an expedition or something where things have completely gone wrong, and you had that thought of, okay, we're in trouble, we're not gonna get out of this one? I mean, traveling through in remote areas all alone and stuff. I mean, there must have been occasions when you thought, wow, okay, no sense in the cock.
Absolutely. I mean, fortunately, we're a band of brothers and sisters together, and there's the team spirit. And yes, I might be the oldest, but I know that I've always got the best backup I could possibly have. My son Ross, for example, who's in charge of the logistics, my partner Sheila, and the team. Mark Nixon, who does it by mountain bike, etc. There's a whole team of wonderful characters, mountain climbers, mountain bikers, adventurers in their own right. And when you know that everybody's watching each other's back, then that's helpful on these journeys. But I do remember on one occasion a few years ago, we went to track the geographic center point of Africa. By that time, we'd done the 7 iconic points that we called 7 iconic geographic points. We'd completed every single country on the African continent. But what about these 7 iconic points? And I'll just shoot through them. The easiest, Cape Agulhas, the southerlymost point where the two oceans meet. And then, of course, you've got the most westerly point in Senegal. You've got the most northerly point in Tunisia. You've got the most easterly point in Somalia. That was dangerous, but we got there. Then, of course, you've got the obvious, the highest point, Kilimanjaro, standing in the world. You've got the lowest, Lake Assal in Djibouti. But always around the campfire, we talked about where is the center of the geographic center of Mama Africa. Canada's got theirs, America's long had theirs. Around the world, Antarctica, they've got their geographic center. So we went to the International Geographic Union. They gave us the correct coordinates for that point. And you're talking about hardship. We took off. The start was easy, up through Southern Africa, through Angola, some difficulties, AK-47 and what have you, crossing the Great River, then into Brazil. And then we trekked for 1,000 kilometers and got into those great forests. The center of the geographic center of Mama Africa lies within 200,000 square kilometers of rainforest. It's not built for blokes like us.
Yeah.
Fortunately, with us, we had a team of 14 Bahaka pygmies, men of the forest who could lead us. Had 2 GPSs, paper maps. With us, we were carried beacon to place in the geographic center of Africa. And it just got worse and worse, Joe. There were days when we went backwards. There was day after day when we were wading up to our beards, falling, crawling, pygmies slashing at the undergrowth, not seeing the light of day, constant rain. Mike, one of the fittest in the group, Mike Nixon, the guy that does these journeys on mountain bike, but now on foot through the forest. He got so many bee stings, constantly hitting him with the epi. His face was swollen to the double the size. He could hardly talk. We had with us a massive guy, Dion Skierman, who'd played professional rugby, his size of a baobab. And when you were walking behind him and he went and into a big divot, he put his foot into the soft black mud like that, and you fell in that. You had to have 2 pygmies to pull you out again. I mean, that those vines that pull at your flesh seem to have an anticoagulant that makes you bleed like a pig.
What?
And so you're constantly covered in flies and bites and bleeding. It's not made for us. We're not used to it. And I remember I think it was 1.7 kilometers from the geographic center, I sat against what could well have been 1,000-year-old tree, looked up into the branches and thought, man, this is a great place to die, before the Chinese cut it down. And then my son Ross coming, the others, and old Brad Hansen and Brewski, and offering me, pull me up with to make it. Otherwise, you'd have here to die. I remember that last short distance, doing it mostly crawling, and the geographic that marks the old root of a tree, actually, and screwing it marks the center of Africa. The beacon that we put there outlined a little elephant. The journey done as a tribute to our elephants. Not fair that an elephant drops to poachers' guns every 15 minutes. That was our story. And somehow we got out of there. We all made it, but yeah, that was one.
Well, I mean, that must be heartening, because you get there, you get to this moment and you've done it. And then you're like, wow, we've made it. And let's, now we have to go back. Do you have to go through all of that again?
Yeah.
Just to, I mean, I think
Yeah,
it's the triumphs and then that breakdown of immediately to go, okay, well, now we have to go back through that. I mean, that
yeah,
must be mentally,
yeah.
mentally challenging.
We limped out of there in a daze. I think buoyed up by the fact that you knew that the Land Rovers were waiting for you there in the forest. And I remember the last straw breaking the camel's back, so to speak. Some of the younger guys had gone ahead and they flashed the Land Rover lights in the dark. And in front of the Land Rover was a massive tree that had collapsed. Couldn't climb over it. It was huge, size of a bulldozer. And there was just a little sort of wet tunnel, mud underneath the tree, enough for a human body to be pulled through. These pygmies on the other side with the long sticks said, Papa Kingsley, you can do it. Come. And I grabbed the stick with 2 hands. And I was pulled to safety in the land. I must say, I don't know where we found the energy from, but danced in the mud. We celebrated and we were just septic sores. I mean, the next day we got to fresh, clean water and we just were covered in bandages and everything. And the entire team took some time to recover, but
of course,
it was a joyous moment.
That's absolutely amazing. So I know. So sorry, I can sit here all day. I know you need to go through. I wanted to have you as my first person for this year because I know you're inspirational and I know you're gonna encourage people because like you said, there's a lot of people that's sitting and times are tough and it's not just from a financial, like you said, people are down. I don't think people understood what how emotionally challenging all of this epidemic and everything was going to be on the world. I don't think people understood what the effect of staying in a house for such a long time and not seeing family members and up and down and stuff, what actually that would have on people. For 2021, what is your message? What do you want to say to everyone?
Well, I know it's tough and I sympathize, especially with the elderly and those living alone. And I just ask you to frostbite and somehow rise. Think of doing those things that you always wanted to do, be it writing a book or studying something. Don't just let it be dumped down time. Look back and say, oh, during that COVID time, I was able to do something positive for myself and take it on as a challenge. I think that is absolute key. And it does happen. I mean, even now, over this last while with beaches closed and everything, you just feel this sort of, you feel fenced in and you get, there's a danger of cabin fever. And so I fully understand it. But it is a great time also for dreaming and planning from an adventure point of view. Now is the time to get out the maps and the atlases and start dreaming and cooking up the next adventure. Give it a name, give it a vision, give it a clear objective. Even have a departure date. And even if you have to change that departure date because of circumstance, start talking to your mates about it. And then comes the most important aspect of all travel, and that is turning.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please be safe with your travels. Everything that you're doing. I'll get all the information. We'll put it out on social media when this video goes out. But please be safe and look after yourself and your crew and everyone. And it's been absolutely phenomenal talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks you very much, and all the best for 2021.
Definitely. Let's make it a big one. All right. Thank you so much.